That's after over a month of no communication. And while there's still no talks of a ceasefire, there's still no talks of releasing more hostages. Israel's prime minister did agree to send some military officials out to D.C.
Terry on the ground is now reporting that Hamas is using recorded voices of children crying to sort of lure soldiers into specific areas. And then on the other end, as we've just heard, IDF mistakenly shot 3 hostages. So
there's a saying in Secret Service that they just simply can't make mistakes, because when they do, people lose their lives. And that's what we saw over the weekend.
I can tell you right now, guys, the energy is very tense. There's a lot riding on New Hampshire. We know that Nikki Haley has done upwards of 60 to 70 events throughout the state.
But for many, even some members of Congress, this is still a debate on the difference between free speech and hate speech.
The death toll in the Israel-Hamas war has reached around 32,000, and the Palestinian Health Ministry reports that of that number, 30,000 are Palestinians. Anger and frustration over 6,000 miles away from the war on U.S. soil. And these protests, they're only growing louder, many of them showing a deep resent for how the Biden administration asked Congress to send Israel money to continue the war. Senator Bernie Sanders voting no on those efforts.
Look, I think everybody recognizes that Israel has a right to defend itself against a terrorist organization like Hamas. My concern right now is that what Netanyahu's right-wing extremist government is doing is not going to war against Hamas, but going to war against the Palestinian people in general.
And that's why black Muslims like Kareem Worthy say he's lost faith in the Biden administration, saying that surrounding countries like Egypt are also feeling the effects of war. Adding to the humanitarian crisis, the thousands of refugees seeking shelter in Egypt and Jordan are being turned away by officials who say they don't want civilians to make Egypt their new home. Worthy saying the far-reaching impact of the war has changed the way many black Muslims feel about President Biden.
So I think that I think Trump is what the country needs at this very moment. With his negotiation tactics, that we could find some common ground amongst American Muslims and just innocent civilians out in Gaza.
President Biden and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, they had a phone conversation this week, and that's after over a month of no communication. And while there's still no talks of a ceasefire, there's still no talks of releasing more hostages. Israel's Prime Minister did agree to send some military officials out to D.C. to kind of talk with President Biden about how they can move forward. Reporting from the nation's capital, I'm Ashonti Ford. So even though marijuana is legal in 24 states, banks, they can't accept business from the marijuana industry, which means they have no idea what kind of money they have coming in and out. Drug policy experts say that's one of the reasons that right now on the black market, illegal grow operations are booming.
When we have this increasing level of black market activity that is interfering with the state legal market, and you have a lot of money laundering that's taking place.
A growing problem that drug expert Luke Neferado says needs to be addressed. He believes that's how Chinese nationals were able to move to America and quietly build a billion-dollar cannabis operation.
It's concerning when you have U.S. senators like Susan Collins from Maine who are putting forth what's called the Safer Banking Act, which would allow the marijuana industry to have access to the U.S. financial system. Now, with that bill in play right now, with what we're learning with this growing involvement of Chinese foreign actors and other cartel actors, that would be very concerning.
Senator Angus King of Maine says the Safer Banking Act is a solution, not a problem.
So I've co-sponsored a bill with a bipartisan bill with a number of colleagues to make it permissible for the marijuana businesses to use the banking system. That will allow a lot more oversight of what's actually going on. And I think it will help us to identify these farms. And we need to do two things. Number one, we need to change the banking system, the business banking laws, so we can keep track of this money. And secondly, we need to find out more about what these foreign-owned farms are all about.
King said he and several other members of Congress reached out to the Justice Department last year to inquire about consequences for these illegal grow farms in the state of Maine. They have not heard back, but King says the real solution is changing banking laws in marijuana-friendly states. In Washington, Ashonti Ford.
And Ashonti joins us now with more. Ashonti, tell us a little bit more about how these illegal grow farms have been identified.
Well, Rashida, Mexican cartels have been the top dog of black market marijuana trade in the U.S., according to the Washington Post, for some time. But now Chinese nationals have quietly built a billion-dollar operation, showing up with suitcases full of cash to buy farmland in marijuana-friendly states like Maine, for example. We just heard from their senator. Border Patrol found 270 homes full of marijuana plants that were estimated to make about $4 billion in revenue. And the state of Maine isn't seeing any of that money. It's reported that these Chinese nationals are sending that money right back to China. So it's a growing problem, as we've said, that some members of Congress feel can be addressed by first changing the banking law so that states may have some more oversight there.